Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. The leftist rage that was breaking out yesterday. And just, right after Trump made his announcement, you had all these protesters outside the U.S. Supreme Court, and they knew they were going to be upset. And what was hilarious about it, they came prepared with all these different signs, different options for signs. Because if you go to a mass protest and you're going to be protesting the president's pick for the U.S. Supreme Court, you've got to take all the options. Kavanaugh, Barrett, you got to take all the options. There was probably like an anti-Merrick Garland protest sign, just in case, because you heard, Chuck Schumer wanted Merrick Garland. I think Trump should have leaked it that he was considering Merrick Garland just to really twist the libs, because, they would have come out and said, Merrick Garland's a bad pick. Oh, Jody, you're right. There was a Standby Cruz sign and a Mike Lee sign, and then all of a sudden what they had to do was, it's Kavanaugh. We got to throw away these other signs. And then they did the generic, hey, hey, ho, ho, Kavanaugh's got to go. Which, come on, you got to come up with a better chant than that. If you're going to have signs ready to go, you better come up with some distinct protest chants as well, instead of the hey, hey, ho, ho thing. That's been played out for a long time. But the left very upset about everything. Joining us on the phones right now, the executive director of America Rising, Alex Smith. Alex, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm just hoping with those signs that they recycled them after they printed all of them.
Oh, that's a good, you know what? That's a really good point. And I hope there were no plastic signs out there, because that would have just... That's going to ruin everything.
No straws.
Oh, exactly. No straw. I hope no straws were harmed in last night's protest. Before we get too far into your thoughts on how some on the left, maybe in some red states, are going to react to this, tell folks a little bit about America Rising.
Sure. So America Rising PAC is the GOP's premier opposition research PAC. So all we do all day, 365 days out of the year, is follow Democrats, and we track them on the ground in their states. We methodically clip and research all of their public statements and all of their, sort of records out there. And we were actually one of the driving forces behind Hillary Clinton's defeat in 2016, because we quite literally wrote the book on her, a 5,000-page research book that was used by a number of different organizations across the political spectrum, or across the GOP ecosystem, in defeating her. So we watch the Democrats, so you don't have to. Long and short of it.
Well, and it's a tough job. Someone's got to do it. It's probably a headache as well. Well, okay, let's talk about the reaction from the left. We all knew that it was going to be vitriolic. No matter who the president was going to nominate, the left was going to be absolutely against the pick. There are a couple of senators, though, that I'm sure you are keeping an eye on, because they're known as those red state blue Democrats who they've got a tough decision ahead of them. People like Joe Manchin.
They absolutely do.
Yeah. So what do you think they're going to do?
Well, so what you're talking about is we have 10 Democratic senators who are running in states that the president won in 2016. 5 of those states he won by 15 points or more. So in the case of Justice Gorsuch, we were actually able to pull over 3 of those Democrats, over to vote for his confirmation. And quite frankly, there should be more this time around. I mean, not only because of the fact that Judge Kavanaugh is an exceptionally qualified jurist, but also because their political fortunes, the stakes are higher than ever for them. And they have to, these are people who went to Washington for this cycle. They voted against the president on repealing Obamacare. They voted against tax cuts. Many of them voted against Justice Gorsuch. So now if they vote against Judge Kavanaugh, their constituents are going to say, what good are you? You're not representing my values down in Washington. And so I think that this should be a slam dunk for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this, to me, you have the Chuck Schumers of the world who are going to vote against the president's pick no matter what. But if you look at Kavanaugh's record, you look at the paper trail. There was a Yale law professor, I'm sure you saw the story from the New York Times, who wrote about how Kavanaugh is an exceptional pick. Even though he was a Hillary Clinton voter, this Yale law professor, he said Kavanaugh's an exceptional pick, and that really there should be no one against Kavanaugh when it comes down to whether he is, has the experience and has the qualities necessary for the U.S. Supreme Court. He checks off all the boxes, it seems.
He absolutely does. This is a jurist that has just an exceptional record. He has years and years of experience on the D.C. Circuit, which is one of the busiest courts in the country, deciding dozens and dozens of important cases. And so, I think that, he definitely has the pedigree that you would want in a Supreme Court justice. And, there used to be a day and age where we would see confirmations go through 99-0. Mm-hmm. The Senate would basically kick in the tires a little bit, make sure that the nominee was qualified, and then go ahead and send them, for a full vote to the Senate with no problem. Now everything is about the next fundraising email. It's about the next YouTube clip that you can send around and that will go viral with your base. And so, we're seeing these statements that are just completely out of control. I mean, Governor Terry McAuliffe last night of Virginia said that people's lives were in danger. That people were going to die as a result of this Supreme Court pick. And so the rhetoric has just gotten so extreme. It was to the point last night, I'm not sure if you saw, but Shannon Bream from Fox News, she was broadcasting live outside the Supreme Court, and the protests out there got so rowdy. Yeah. The police had to close down the streets around the Supreme Court, and they had to move the show back into the studio because they didn't feel safe doing a live show there. So this is what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things I worry about with all the, people are going to die because of this pick, that now the Supreme Court, they're going to get rid of contraceptions, they're going to get rid of health care, they're going to get rid of gay marriage, they're going to get rid of all this. It's ratcheting up this rhetoric, and it's really ratcheting up the danger that we are already seeing that, Trump supporters, Trump aides, Republicans in general, like Mitch McConnell, are all being yelled at and heckled when they go out to places. One of the things I fear is that you're going to see this even more, and that's not going to be good for the left, and it's not going to be good for the country overall.
This rising level of incivility, I think is, it's real out there. And I think that it will only increase with the Supreme Court pick because of the fact that the Democrats can do very little to actually stop it. Someone like Nancy Pelosi can tweet all she wants that she's going to stop the Supreme Court pick. And I've got to send Nancy a copy of the Constitution because I don't think anyone told her that she doesn't get a vote.
Right.
And so they know that they're sort of helpless in this. They know that they're going to lose some of these Democrats, some of these red state Democrats over to the Republicans for this vote. And so they're just apoplectic. And look, if you're Elizabeth Warren with your incoherent resist strategy, or your Senator Cory Booker saying that the Mueller investigation needs to conclude before the president gets to pick a Supreme Court justice, you could afford to say those things in the places where where they are. Yeah. You can't afford to say those things if you're Joe Manchin in West Virginia, or if you're Bill Nelson in Florida, or Claire McCaskill in Missouri. And so I think that the incivility will be on the rise, and I think that that actually puts more pressure on those senators to vote with the Republicans, because the other side will look so extreme by contrast.
Yeah. We're visiting with Alex Smith, Executive Director of America Rising. Obviously, America Rising and the Republican Party overall, they're going to be pressuring some of these red state Democrats to vote for this nominee, which they should. What type of pressure is going to be put on? Is this going to be do you think that you're going to get 10 out of 10, or what's the best case scenario in your opinion?
The best case scenario is that we get the confirmation through, through any combination of Republicans and Democrats that we can. At the end of the day, We want to see Justice Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, and so that's the goal at the end of the day. But we're going to be holding these Democrats' feet to the fire on this because their constituents deserve to know that they're going home and they're saying that they're going to work with the president, that they're reaching across the aisle, they're working with Republicans, and then they're actually going to Washington and doing something different. This is a really easy thing for them to say yes to because Judge Kavanaugh is exceptionally qualified. He's respected by people across the political spectrum, and this should be a no-brainer for them. This should be an easy one.
Yeah. Alex Smith, Executive Director of America Rising. Alex, tell folks where they can find out more information on America Rising.
Sure. They can go to americarisingpac.org, and they can see all of our hits on the Democrats, which we keep track of all the time, so you all don't have to.
Very nice. Alex Smith, Executive Director of America Rising PAC. Appreciate your time today, and we'll visit with you later on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's Alex Smith, the Executive Director of America Rising. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.